Standing in the wake of this train wreck, my heart is beating faster in my chest. This depression terrifies me. When I'm awake, it's like these thoughts, they paralyze me. I don't wanna feel like this. I don't wanna feel like this. Time stops, weightless and cold. Silence burns like fire while my fears unfold. There's panic. Tooth to my cheek, too hard to speak without you. Lungs drained of air, life feels unfair without you. Come back to me, don't leave me to dream about you, dream about you, dream about you. How can I breathe without you? How can I breathe without you? Without you. What is left to say when the sky falls? I'm staring at your ghost in the stars. There's not a day that I don't miss you. The feeling swelling overflow, it's like I see you, hear you. I don't wanna feel like this. Why do I still feel like this? Heart ripped out of my brain. I sit here talking to myself. I think I'm going insane. Tooth to my cheek, too hard to speak without you. Lungs drained of air, life feels unfair without you. Come back to me, don't leave me to dream about you, dream about you, dream about you. How can I breathe without you? How can I breathe without you? The only way to fix this, the only way to fix this pain inside, the only way to fix this is a deep breath in as you say
I kick ass for the Lord.
What about me?
I never loved him the way that I love you. Just drops the mic.
Bit me with his butt.
Can't see it from here.
What about the panty?
What about the panty? What's up, Butters? What's up, everybody? Hello, and welcome into 52/1993, the live movie conversation podcast where we discuss movies from the year 1993. I am your host, Cody, and I am joined by my co-host this week, Alyssa. Thank you for joining me, Alyssa.
Thank you for having me.
If this is your first time joining us, welcome in. We're happy for you to join us today. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up before we move into our discussion. Basically, what we do is we've watched 52 movies from the year 1993, important movies released this year by their weekend releases. Doesn't matter if they're good, bad, somewhere in the middle. Most of them are in the middle. But usually we'll have a guest to talk about the movie, and we just go through some different categories, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, so let's go ahead and kind of kick things off with you, Alyssa. One thing that I've been starting to do, and I like to put people on the spot, and you've probably seen me do it the last couple of weeks, but I like to get a synopsis. So if you could give me a synopsis of this movie from your perspective, what would it be?
A butler just kind of goes through life and has to kind of deal with the fact that though he has devoted his entire life to servitude to his master, he realizes later down in his life that maybe that wasn't always the way to go.
I like it. That's a pretty good one. That's probably better than the synopsis that I got from Google. So, no, I like to do that. I don't know why. I like it. Ryan suggested it a while back, and
I've watched every week, and yet I completely forgot this was coming.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. I like it. I'm glad you're like on your heels a little bit. Virgin butler makes biggest goof of life. Cool. Thanks, Spencer. That's a good one too. Anyway, if you haven't figured out what this movie is, it's because you probably either didn't watch it or you have no idea what we're talking about. But this week we are talking about the movie The Remains of the Day. Had you ever seen this before?
No, never heard of it.
Me neither. I had never heard of this movie, but this is one of our 5 Best Picture nominees from this year. So definitely an important movie from this year, and exactly why I picked it for today's podcast. So I'll go ahead and start. I'll introduce the movie, and then we can talk a little bit more about it. So like I already said, the movie's title is called The Remains of the Day. It was released on October 25th, 1993. It was directed by James Ivory. It was written by Ruth Prawer Havilah and Harold Pinter, who was uncredited. And it's based on a novel by Kazuo Ishiguro. Sorry. Gosh, I even wrote down the pronunciation for that. So it's
You did great.
Kazuo Ishiguro. Got it. Nailed it. All right. And this movie's cast includes Anthony Hopkins as the butler Stevens, Emma Thompson as Miss Kenton, James Fox as Lord Darlington, Peter Vaughn as Stevens Sr. or the father, Christopher Reeve as Jack Lewis, Hugh Grant as Cardinal, Tim Pigott-Smith as Tom Ben, Lena Headey as Lizzie, and Ben Chaplin as Charlie. And here I will give Google's synopsis of this movie. During the 1930s, James Stevens serves as a proper English butler to the doltish Lord Darlington. Stevens is so dedicated that he forgoes visiting his father on his deathbed in order to serve and overlooks Darlington's Nazi sympathies and growing anti-Semitism. 20 years after his employer's death, Stevens tries to reconnect with Miss Kenton, Darlington's head housekeeper, and begins to regret his loyalty to his former master. I think there are a couple missed things in that synopsis. I don't think it was 20 years after his employer's death. I think his employer died.
It was 20 years after his employment.
Yeah. Well, no,
it was 20 years after, like, there's a 20-year difference between the past and the present when we were flipping back and forth.
But it wasn't 20 years after his master's death.
Unless he died that same year. then that's not implied or said anywhere in the movie.
I want to know who comes up with these Google things, because I love to do them because they're so wrong. But anyway, this movie had a budget of $15 million, and it had a box office return of $63.9 million, which I think is kind of impressive for this type of movie. This is not a movie that we get very much anymore. I don't think at all. Kind of going with, I think, what did we do I can't even remember the movie last week, but this week's Rotten Tomatoes score was 96% and IMDb rating of 7.8%.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before, and it had a 95%.
I thought that was really high.
Very high for Rotten Tomatoes, but we're not going to get into that anymore. I'm not going to get into there. Here's a couple reviews, though. The Remains, and this is a good one because you and I both discussed a similar movie, probably definitely in the same vein. But anyway, I'll read this review from Roger Ebert, and then we can discuss a little bit. He says, The Remains of the Day is a subtle, thoughtful movie. There are emotional upheavals in it, but they take place in shadows and corners in secret. It tells a very sad story, 3 stories, really. Not long ago, I praised a somewhat similar film, Martin Scorsese's The Age of Innocence, about characters who place duty and position above the needs of the heart. I got letters from readers who complained that movie was boring and that nothing happens in it, to which I was tempted to reply, if you had understood what happened in it, it would not have been boring. Roger Ebert, he gave this 3.5 stars out of 4. So he used his Remains of the Day review to say, oh no, this is a good movie, but you know what's a really good movie? Age of Innocence. And he used this review to like get a so's your old man about these. I disagree, and I feel like you disagree too.
I really disagree. I mean, we did Age of Innocence just a couple weeks ago, and even when you you search Remains of the Day in like Google or IMDb, The Age of Innocence comes up, and it might be because it was made in the same year, but they're very similar in the sense that they're both dramas. They both have somewhat of romance in it. But I still thought that Age of Innocence was so boring. But this movie was not boring. Like it did go a couple different directions, but like I loved every direction that it went in.
Yeah. I think that this movie there is more romantic, or we'll even say like sexual tension scenes in Age of Innocence, and none of them worked for me. There's nothing in this movie at all.
They don't kiss in this movie.
Nothing. And
No,
it is I turned to you and I was like, yeah, I turned to you last night and I was like, this movie is far sexier than that Age of Innocence. I don't care what anybody says.
It was way better. It was, and like I like that he said it was there's a subtlety to it, and that's I think what made it stand out more.
Yeah, I think this is probably very, very near perfect movie. I think if you take and I think that the art direction and the design, the clothing and all that stuff was very good in this movie, but like some of the stuff about Age of Innocence that I did like a lot of, like if you could combine that with this movie, I think you have a like 5.5 star movie out of 5. Like that's, or 6 star out of 5 movie. Because I love some of the artistic choices that Scorsese did in Age of Innocence, but and I think this is a great movie as well. But yeah, I just don't think that the acting was as good, or the story was as good or compelling as this one was. So
yes, our Age of Innocence was way more artistic, had a lot of really cool elements to it, but plot wise, Remains of the Day any day.
And I think Remains of the Day also has that other storyline that is going in the background. That, I mean, obviously this is centered just on Stevens and his life, but like that the impending World War II, Nazis, like that in the background.
Yeah, and I will say, like, that might be why it is more appealing, because with Age of Innocence, there is no major historical event happening. It's about high society and like social politics as opposed to actual politics.
Yeah.
But like we are as Americans, like are just in general, like very more aware of World War II and what was going on and the historical events surrounding that. With Age of Innocence, there is no like specific historical event. It's just culture.
Mhm.
And maybe that's why this story is more gripping, because we're getting all these details about who said this and why they do this and social politics. And it, maybe if it had some type of actual political issue happening in the background, maybe that would make it more gripping.
Yeah, I think like obviously this movie is more heavy-handed in the political aspect, the political storyline, as a movie like I was gonna say, and I don't know if you've seen it, but Banshees of Inisherin, there's an Irish Civil War that's going on at the same time during that movie, and it goes with the storyline.
Yeah.
In that one, it's a little bit less prominent in that movie, but I think it's another kind of similar structure there of having that in the background. This one's a little bit more in the foreground, but
Right.
yeah.
And for this one, it if our main character Stevens, like it hammers home how he is who he is.
Mhm.
Like it really does shape the 20 years later Stevens as opposed to the 20 years past.
Yeah, absolutely. So a negative review of this movie, I'll go ahead and move on to that one. The actors keep this interesting, but as a story, it drifts and rambles. That was by Jonathan Rosenbaum of the Chicago Reader. Anybody who wants to look up a crazy looking man, look up Jonathan Rosenbaum of the Chicago Reader. It's crazy. Anyway, the little bit of a legacy, some awards talk for this one. No wins for this movie for an Academy Award, but it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Score. 0 wins. And this is ranked of the number 64 on the British Film Institute's top 100 films of all time. And I do know that Anthony Hopkins did win a BAFTA, which is like the British equivalent of the Oscars, for this movie and Best Actor. So very impressive run there, although it didn't get any awards. This is a tough year. We're about to come up on some award season people or movies, and we're going to see what those are all about, I guess. But yeah, I look forward to some of these Oscar movies to see how it is a better acting year, especially acting. That was the one thing that I was a little bit surprised by. I was like, who was the actor this year? And then I remembered who it was. So y'all can look it up later. It is one of our future movies, so we can talk about that at that time. But anyway, let's move into our conversation and go through some of these categories. And we'll start with you and talk about some of the best scenes that you had for this movie.
So the first scene, and I kind of just skip ahead kind of far, but no, I guess not too far. But the first scene that like kind of sticks out to me is Stevens and Miss Kenton kind of discussing and almost arguing about Stevens Sr. So because it kind of shows their power dynamic and power struggle almost as coworkers, as employer and employee. Also throws the dad plot in there. And you kind of see they kind of, her frustration with him, his somewhat lack of emotion ever, and it also talking about like, hey, you hired your dad and he sucks.
Yeah,
we
he's
need
an
to
old
address
man.
that as like from a business standpoint.
And this is even, I think this is even before he falls with the tray, right?
Yes, it was like the first signs was like he left the dustpan in the stairwell.
And the Chinaman.
The
I'll go ahead
Chinaman
and-
with the bobblehead.
With the bobblehead, yeah. Guys, it was a different time. I don't know what it was, but it was
The
wild.
30s.
But yeah, left the statue in the wrong spot or whatever it was. Yeah, I like that power dynamic, and it shows that obviously Stevens is the top of the heap for the I reference Upstairs Downstairs. It's this old British show that is all about like the wait staff, the butler staff of those. Um, that's a good from chat. Their first fight is about elder care. Their whole relationship is backward. I like that. That's very funny. No, and then as she is the housekeeper, she's second in command, and I feel like he would be more. This is the first time, yeah, you're talking about that first power dynamic role there, but I feel like anytime at any other point in the movie, he is more willing to talk about things or accept criticism about things. But this, because it's his father and he just got his father hired on to be the under butler, or is it under butler? Yeah. Wild. So yeah, I think that's a good scene and a good introduction, and definitely did not see this movie getting very. I think you even when we were watching this together, you even turned to me at one point and you were like, "This is not romantic. Like, when's the I was promised romance." That's what you said.
I was promised romance. Yes, because I even when you read that second review that was more negative and it said the plot kind of drifted, like even I'm thinking just solely of the poster where it's of their two faces like looking off into the distance. I'm like, okay, like this is a romance movie, and then all of a sudden the dad is involved very heavily, and I'm like, she does not like this man at all. like this is not a romance yet. Like it's not even hinting at it at that point. Like it really doesn't even start until an hour in.
And it's actually interesting that we have that so early on, because I believe we've already heard some of the flash forward, like the letter that is going back and forth between her and Stevens, and she's talking to him about actually like enjoying her time there. Or very early on, and I think it is part of that letter. So we're kind of like, hey, does she like it there? Does she not? So
right,
a little bit of that. So anything else you want to talk about that specific?
No, that was just like the first one that stuck out to me.
Yeah,
as like kind of giving us a background and how their relationship is gonna go.
What's your second scene?
The second scene is the dinner party.
Okay, that's the first one that I had listed there. So a lot happens in this. So you go ahead and spill.
So the Lord Darlington invites a bunch of like world diplomats over to discuss basically Germany's plight. Germany post World War I, he believes got an unfair cut with the treaty. That is his belief. Yeah. And he has his best friend was German. That's like his only background in politics. So he invites the American, a Frenchman, a German, like one representative, not like the top leaders, but like a congressman and a diplomat and an ambassador. Brings them all together and is hoping to kind of convince them that, hey, Germany got the short end of the stick, and they're having just a dinner party and it's all like highfalutin and stuff. And the American is like, don't love this.
Yeah. This is a crazy scene because it's unique, and I don't know how much this is still relevant to the United Kingdom. But I mean, we had stopped this movie at one point and again talked about like, who are these people? Why do they have a say in any of this? None of them seem to be like members of parliament. They seem to be nobles, the British anyway. And none of these people have like real power. Some of them are like ambassadors and stuff like that. But it's weird, especially in like the 30s, I guess, is when we're at like 1930s, that we still have that dynamic and these people who are
right. You kind of framed it as lobbyist.
Yeah. That's exactly. I think that's a really good way to put it, is that the nobles are kind of lobbyists in the same way that the queen is like the biggest lobbyist of all, or king now. I forgot she ripped. I could have put that better. I could have definitely put that better.
She ripped.
She ripped one. But also, so we have this conference going on. Stevens is trying to put on the show, make sure no mistakes happen. And this is after we discover that his father has had a stroke.
Yeah, like at this, he finds out is like, hey, your father has taken ill. Hey, your father passed is like going to die. Hey, your father passed away 4 minutes ago. Like and he's just like, I have to go back to work, which is bananas.
Yeah, and this starts one of my favorite. I think it happens twice in the movie, maybe 3 times, but I think it's Cardinal is talking to Stevens and he asks him how he's doing, and Stevens replies with, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm a bit tired."
Yeah.
And I'm a bit tired. Anytime he says I'm a bit tired, he is screaming inside. Like,
yes.
this poor man.
Yeah, something massive has just happened. And instead of saying I'm sad or I'm upset, I'm angry. It's like I'm just a bit tired, which is like something that we all do.
I'm
Like,
gonna do that from now on. Anytime that I'm raging, I'm just gonna be like, I'm a bit tired.
I'm a bit tired.
No, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna be very cool. I'm gonna be very Anthony Hopkins about this, and just be very never let it affect me.
Yeah, and the
At
other
all.
thing that kind of shows that is that like that's an interaction that we have still now when someone asks us like, "Hey, how's it going? Are you okay? Like you don't look so good." And we go, "Oh, I'm just tired." And if like a real friend would go, "Nah, tell me what's up." But someone who doesn't care about you or is like on that surface level, like Cardinal, like Lord Darlington, like no one's going to actually ask the butler how he is doing.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'm just a bit tired, and they go, okay.
Instead, they're going to talk about freshwater and saltwater fish, which is one of the funnier parts of this movie. But
Random, but very
yeah,
funny.
very random. Also, we get the introduction of or not the introduction. We see him early in the movie, in the 1950s. But Christopher Reeve's character, the American character, who actually gets to stand up at the dinner party and say, "I don't think this is great."
He's like, he calls everyone an amateur. He's like, y'all are amateurs.
Amateur politics.
This is amateur hour.
I think he calls it realpolitik or realpolitik. I don't remember how that goes.
The politics of reality.
Yes. And basically, yeah, calls all these people at this fancy dinner party just amateurs. And I did think that was funny. So somebody just mentioned in the chat that Americans are so heroic. And like, I did think it was funny. I was like, obviously this is 1993, so maybe it's a little bit different. But yeah, the American guy stepping up and being like, hey guys, Germany's not that great. There's a lot of weird stuff that they're talking about right now. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny that the American was the sense of reason in that, especially just today and how it would be portrayed in any other movies that we talk about. So very good. Is there anything that we're missing? Probably. I mean, his father dies.
His father dies.
And he goes back to work. And
he goes back to work. Miss Kenton is like attempting to be like, I'm so sorry. You have my condolences. And he goes, thank you. I have to go now. She is attempting to show empathy. And
even before, even when he gets taken to his bed, she says, I'll look after him.
Yes. She's like, you can go back to work. I'll stay with him.
Yeah.
So she was probably with him when he died.
Yeah. And then she said, can I close his eyes for him?
Yes. And he's like, that would be appreciated. We're just like,
yeah, it's nuts.
It is a deeply kind thing to do for someone who we assume you're annoyed with.
Yeah.
Or you're even just coworkers, right? Like obviously being in this butler housemaker like role, these people all live together. They're like they become friends with one another. They're essentially a family in a weird way, but it's like serfs, but it's servitude. But the way that she's like, I can close his eyes for you, like that is very kind.
Yes, I like that. But it also like. I mean, this is a sad scene, and like obviously the father, but this is kind of the spark, I think, that we get to him softening a little bit. Like he doesn't have to protect his father anymore. It
also sounded like a lot of like obviously he has this idea of what morality is and servitude and the only way to live a fulfilling life is to serve your master, but his dad seems to have his dad was a butler his whole life too, so this is like this is the family legacy. His dad was like hammering it home for him, like you need to be doing a good job. So it's almost like that pressure might be gone in a way, like still upsetting and like
Mhm.
sad, but like in a way he doesn't have his dad over his shoulder watching his like trying to tell him what to do, even though he's the under butler.
I do hate though that the last words that father says to his son is about how he cheated on his mom.
He goes, I fell out of love with your mother. I'm like, he didn't need
Or
to know
she
that.
ch-
You
did
could
she
have
cheat
taken
on
that to the
him?
grave.
I don't remember what it was, but yeah, she cheated on him is kind of the
Could have taken that to the grave.
yeah, take that to
It
the
would have been
grave.
fine. You
Go
didn't need
back to
share
work.
that one.
Yeah, it
Go
was
back to
weird.
work. He's like, I need to tell you something. He's like, I really have to go back to work. I hate your mom. Like, yikes.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
I hope to see you soon. Dead.
Dead.
Rip with the queen. All right. I mean, yeah. What's the next scene that you have on this?
So I have. We're in the future now, and he's at the pub and his car breaks down.
Okay, I
Do you have one before that?
Which one happens first? Well, no, yes, I do have one. I think
I think
before
you have
that.
one first. Yeah.
I have the new hire. So like we have those two characters of Lizzie and Charlie. That Lizzie is a new or was brought on to be like the second under Miss Kenton,
Mhm.
and her and Charlie, who Charlie's an under butler, getting together, and then now he has to hire, and they fall in love. They leave servitude altogether
Mhm.
because love.
Because love.
And so they have to hire a new one, and he actually chooses to hire a girl that is pretty. And we have that interaction between him and Miss Kenton where she's like,
Yeah.
oh, you hired a pretty girl. You actually do. You like,
You're
have
actually
feelings.
a human. You have flesh and blood.
And you think she's cute, don't you? And we have a very cute interaction, I think, with Stevens and Miss Kenton there that I have in some of my quotes for later. So that is, I have that. I think that happens before
Yes. I just thought of, so before the pub and the car breakdown scene, I think there's the Miss Kenton getting engaged is another scene I think that comes before that probably should also be mentioned.
Well, and I also have the Miss Kenton discovers Stevens reading that romance novel, which I think is the big scene before she even gets engaged and everything.
True. There's like that moment when we're like, I was trying to like narrow it only down. Like you could pick out moments from this movie if you want to talk about like 8 or 9 moments, but
yeah,
I try to narrow it down a bit.
Yeah, it's very hard. It was really hard. But yeah, I have the new hire, and then like Miss Kenton discovering Steve, like that new hire scene leads to that softening, and like Steven's actually enjoying Miss Kenton and thinking that she's interesting and funny, and
Yeah, he's joking with her.
yes, joking
Like
with her.
she's like, you won't even look at me, you're so embarrassed. He goes, no, I'm not looking at you because I'm ignoring you and trying to think of literally anything else than the
Yes,
words
I
coming
love
out of
that.
your mouth. And
I
I'm just
love
like,
that line.
I'm like, just kiss already.
But then she ends up in his private space, which has been
His
established earlier, his office, and he's reading a book, and she's like, oh, what are you reading? And he's like embarrassed about it and won't show her. And she's like, oh, is it a racy book? And he's like, no, it's not racy. The master wouldn't have any racy books. And then they get so freaking close to kissing.
That man has so much willpower. He go like, because she was like,
Yeah, she
let's
was in.
go, and he went, I think you should go to bed. Like, I think you need to leave. I think you need to get out of my private space. It's my private time to go. And I was like, but and like we said this slightly earlier, but I'm like, that one scene with no kissing, no hugging, no touching, other than touching his hand to like pry the book out of his hands, was more intense and more sexual than anything that happened in Age of Innocence.
100%.
Awesome.
While we're talking about sexual tension and kissing and all this stuff, I do want to point out that everybody that kisses in this movie
Can't
sucks
kiss.
at kissing.
There's like
Yeah, it's
Just
a
like
lot
peck.
of pecking,
weirdly
like-
peck.
chewing.
Yeah.
It was,
Just-
yeah, it was a lot of gnawing each other's faces. It was kind of disturbing to see some of these people kiss, but
Like Barbie dolls just getting smashed together.
yeah, it was that's a great one. So, and then I think this also happens before the car ride or the his car breaking down and everything, but the meeting about the appeasement happening as also when Miss
That's like-
Clinton gets engaged.
Yeah.
And
That's another, something massive happening at the exact same, like the something that's happening with the master with Lord Darlington at the exact same time. Something emotional is happening in the
Yeah.
butler's life.
and that the poor butler having to figure this out, and trying to stay a butler, finding out that, hey, my master is probably not, doing too great and hates Jewish people, or he kind of softens on at this point, but they're talking about, being cool with Germany and letting them do their thing and being very anti-Semitic. He has the prime minister over, he has the ambassador from Germany over, and everybody's all on board. Neville Chamberlain's like, yeah, let's not worry about the Germans. Let's be cool. And all at this time that this is happening, that Miss Kenton comes back in, storms in, and she's like, hey, by the way, I'm engaged. Do you care?
She's just like, I'm begging you to care. I am begging you to say literally anything.
God. And I wrote this in my quotes, but he says, and I have to say it now. She says, do you have anything? He had already said congratulations. And she says, you have anything else to say? And he goes, you have my warmest congratulations. And then he goes back to work. Yeah. And that we do finally get to see his anger during this time, because he goes down to the cellar,
the wine bottle.
Yes, breaks the wine bottle, and we hear him curse and say "damn it" or "damn," and then comes back up,
just
stoic, stone-faced, walks into Miss Kenton's room. She's bawling her eyes out, and he asks her to dust a room that needs some attention.
That was cold. It almost, the way it was set up, like he obviously hears her sobbing. He has that moment where he's like, I'm gonna go check on her. I'm gonna go say something. I'm gonna go comfort her, and he can't do it because that would be deviating from his duty of being a butler. So he just, in that way, he's like, this is my way of comforting someone. He goes, hey, I need you to dust that room. And she's just like, go fuck yourself, man.
Yeah.
Like, she's so upset. And he attempted, but he chickened out.
And at that point, you could see it on her face as she stops crying, that she's like, it's not going to happen. Like, this is it. I've accepted that, and I'll get right to it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I'll do it. Even though it's my day off, leave me the fuck alone. Like, and I'm bawling over you not caring.
Yes.
So
good.
Heart-wrenching. All right, now I'll let you go to the pub scene.
Okay, so now we're in the future. 20 years later, his car breaks down. He ends up at a pub or bed and breakfast to like stay the night while he has to go, wait to get fuel for his car. He meets like bartender, a couple guys in the bar, including Dr. Carlisle. Don't know why I remember his name, but and they're asking him a lot of questions, like, oh, like, what do you do? What's your job? Where are you from? What are your political beliefs? Which is, just bar talk. And then like the next day, Dr. Carlisle like drives him to his car that has no fuel in it. And eventually he kind of comes clean. He's like, hey, I kind of like lied a little bit. Like I was a butler. I was in service. I did serve Lord Darlington, and he was a really good man. He was a really honorable, diligent man, and I loved working for him. And the Dr. Carlisle's like, are you a Nazi sympathizer? Basically, they were like, he was like, what? I was like, do you agree with what he said? Like, do you share the same beliefs as Lord Darlington? And he's like, I did not bother with such things, or that wasn't part of my duty. Like,
Mm.
it was outside of my realm of expertise. I was to serve him, and I'm glad I did. He was good to me.
And I can't remember. Does he say like in that he softened a little, like that he realized his mistake when he's talking to Dr. Carla, or does he say that to Miss Kenton?
I think he says that to Miss Kenton.
Yeah.
I think. Well, he does say to the Carlisle. He's like, I think Lord Darlington regretted his choices later in life.
Yeah.
Like, Darlington kind of woke up and realized shouldn't have been a Nazi sympathizer.
Yeah. I don't care if you have a best friend, like, if it's German.
He's like, probably shouldn't have done that. So I think he says that to Carlisle, saying like, he wasn't all that bad. Like, and by the end of his life, like, he did realize the error of his ways. But he never says what his thoughts are.
Ooh, what about the scene 2 when the people in power are asking Stevens his thoughts on politics and he won't answer? I hated that. I hated that scene, but I had that scene listed in. That's actually my what the fuck scene.
That's fair.
Scene. So we'll get.
We can talk about it then. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about it then. So yeah, I had the car ride as well as the next like uncomfortable thing, and again, just setting up like, hey man, what do you stand for?
Yeah, and he won't say.
And he won't say. Still to the end, he won't say. What's the next one you have?
Being reunited with Miss Kenton.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of split up into, several different things. Like, obviously this was the whole the whole journey of him in the 1950s was going to meet up with Miss Kenton.
Specifically them on the pier.
Oh yes, the pier. I love the pier scene. I have, there's a quote in that pier scene that I have written down and everything. And then like her basically telling him like, hey, because she just finds out news that her daughter,
she's gonna be a grandma.
Yeah, that her daughter is pregnant and she's going to be a grandma. And essentially that's it. That's the thing that keeps her from going back to Darlington Manor or whatever.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because she said when she married Benton. Wait, what was the guy's last name?
Is it Mr. Ken?
Or
Ben. Ben. Yeah, Mr. Ben.
Okay.
Tom Ben. Yeah.
Tom Ben. So she marries Ben, and it wasn't like great. But then she had her daughter, and like became obsessed with her daughter. Her life became her daughter. And she goes, and eventually I figured out I loved my husband. And she's like, I did love him. I grew to love him. Eventually she leaves him. Like, once her daughter kind of like flies the nest, she's like, oh shit, we don't have anything in common. So she's like, so she does leave him, but like her daughter is her world.
Yeah.
So for her to, she was like, I'm single again. Like, I'm not with my husband. I miss being the housekeeper. I would love to, that was the whole reason he came out there in the first place, was that he was going to hire her again, because that was part of the letter that they wrote back and forth. She was like, I miss it. He's like, we're actually in need of a housekeeper. And she's like, that would be awesome. So when he goes out there, she goes, actually, I can't go. And she's clearly torn up about it. Like, she makes her choice, and I think the proper choice to make. But at the same time, you're just like, oof.
Yeah. She also says this thing about her husband too, and we get a little bit of this, but whenever she's talking to her husband and finding out that she's going to be a grandma, where like she says, hey, you missed the spot shaving, or you nicked yourself shaving, I think. And she says this to Stevens. She's like, he can't do anything without me. He's useless. Yeah. Like,
well, he says it too. He says, guess I can't do anything right these days.
Yeah. And which echoes something that Steven says earlier in the movie when somebody asks about the housekeeper, and he said, I couldn't do this
without her.
Yeah, I'd be lost without her. So kind of unique there. There's a little bit of codependence there. But whatever. Also, after the pier and them talking, we get the bus scene. Stop. Oh God, the bus stop. The bus stop. And them kind of exchanging pleasantries and saying goodbye.
Yeah. And he says, he's like, opens up in like doesn't open up in the way like in a big way. He basically says, I loved working with you. And he says, and I'm getting so sentimental right now because this is the last time I'm going to see you.
Mm.
And I'm just like, ah.
And they say goodbye, and the camera focuses in on their hands, like leaving as the bus pulls off, and she starts sobbing. And all he does is tips his hat off and says goodbye. And I'm just like,
So good.
God.
So good.
Yeah, so good. And then there's like a follow-up scene that's supposed to be symbolic of like a bird getting caught in the house and
Yeah.
him freeing this pigeon, but that's not this scene. They could have ended with the goodbye,
They
and I
could
think
have
I would
ended
have
it with
I
the
would have been
bus
fine.
driving away, and it would have been
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh gosh. All right. Any other scenes or anything that we missed that we think are, we're missing in this? So
I don't think that's it.
all right. Who was your favorite character or scene stealer?
My favorite character is Miss Kenton.
I had the exact same thing.
I think she did a great job. I think she was cute, and like she like brought like a liveliness to the screen, whereas like Stevens is very, it's like grumpy sunshine.
Yeah.
And so she kind of brought like a life to the screen in a way.
She's the more, she gets to have a little bit more fun. She's the looser rules and stuff like that. Like when she catches Lizzie and Charlie like snogging, she was just like, guys, get back to work. Like, come on. Like,
yeah,
it's whatever. But she wouldn't be like Steven's reaction to that. We can only imagine that he would kind of flip out on both of them.
Right. Or even just like when she's like trying to talk to Stevens about his dad, she's like, I am urging you to look at the Chinaman. Like, it's just so I don't know why it was funny, but she's like, her eyebrows are like in her forehead, and she's like,
yeah. And then we see like, I love her passive aggressiveness and like, hey, I'll wait out here until you're done.
Yeah.
And like he peers through the keyhole and sees that she's actually going to wait out there until he comes out to see what she's talking about. And he still kind of ignores her. But yeah, she's good. She has all those snappy, comebacks, and she's very good at being, very good at being passive aggressive. I as a passive aggressive person, I really admired her ability.
You admire her craft.
I did. It was very fun. She was
a great character.
Yeah, I really loved her. I don't think there are any other characters besides Stevens that you can really like fall in love with. And Stevens is a really hard character to fall in love with. Like and think is like your favorite. Yeah.
I think it's just the two of them, really.
Yes. I mean, maybe people are into the congressman, but he's barely in it. So yeah, he's just cute. All right. Favorite quotes that you have that really shine.
I got a couple. One is a funny one which I wrote down immediately as soon as it was said, when Lizzie and her beau are like, we need to tell them that we're leaving. And he's like, you haven't told her yet. And she's like, oh, she wouldn't understand. And she's like, well, why wouldn't she understand? She goes, well, she's old. She must be at least 30. And I was like,
ouch.
Damn. Okay. So that was funny. I wrote down one. I could not get the exact quote because I like searched for it, could not find it. But it's at the very beginning when this is the very first time Miss Kenton is saying to Stevens something about his dad, being like, hey, there's an issue going on. But she goes, I'm sure your father is good at his job, but I can assure you, Mr. Stevens, I am also good at mine. And I was just like, yeah. I'm like, just, I don't know. I love that. That tickled me. She does another passive aggressive comment. My mistake, no doubt, one of many.
I thought that one was good. I love that one.
The last one I have was, I think this is why I remember his name, is a Dr. Carlisle quote from when he's like he's got his hand on the car, like Stevens is about to drive off, and he's asking about like his political beliefs, like the Lord. And he's like, if a mistake was to be made, wouldn't you rather have made your own?
Yeah, I had that one written down too.
Yeah, because Stevens will not say what his beliefs are, what if he's for, against, pro, con. He just is like, yeah, I just served my master and my master made some mistakes. He's like, what about your mistakes? Like, what have you
Mhm.
done? And that's obviously plays into more than just political beliefs and plays into his role with Miss Kenton. But I thought that was a good one.
Yep, I had that one as well. Any others that you have?
Those are the
Oh.
ones that stuck out to me.
All right. I've already kind of, oh gosh, I went to the wrong screen here. I had a couple more. One is just, I mean, it's not like a great quote, but it is just like, I feel like Miss Kenton is screaming this throughout the rest of the movie and not actually screaming it. But she says, why, Mr. Stevens, why do you always have to hide what you feel? Which is just like the center of all of this. Like, why don't you just tell me?
Oh yeah, that man has to have an alt. He's gonna die from an exploding stomach ulcer.
Yeah,
That is the
seriously.
way he goes because he just takes every emotion and just shoves it down.
I have this interaction between Miss Kenton and Stevens where he asks her, he's like, weren't you supposed to quit after, we fired the 2 Jewish maids? And she says, I am a coward. I'm frightened of leaving, and that's the truth. All I see out in the world is loneliness, and it frightens me. That's all my high principles are worth, Mr. Stevens. I'm ashamed of myself. And so she's very open, very honest with him. And he says, Miss Kenton, you mean a great deal to this house. You're extremely important to this house, Miss Kenton.
Yes.
And obviously he's saying like, hey, you're important to me. And yeah. And she responds back with, am I? I love that. I also have, from the pier scene. I love this. And I didn't catch it. I didn't think about it as much last night, but she says when the lights come on the pier, she says they do say that for a great many people, the evening's the best part of the day, the part they most look forward to. And I didn't even think about it.
But so you went, yeah, like you literally audibly said, yeah, after she said that line.
Yeah. But I was just like, yeah, I like night. I like nighttime. I was being an idiot. I was just like, yeah, I just like the nighttime. It's, fun. But I didn't even think about like the times that her and Kenton or her and Stevens would spend together talking in the evenings. I kind of wish we had more of that. Just to see them interact a little bit more and have some fun with each other. But yeah, I loved that line. And after I finally was like, oh, duh, Cody, the doy, you have that. So, and then what else do I have here? Oh, the interaction that I had spoke about earlier where Miss Kenton, he's hired the new housemaid and she says, you don't like having pretty girls on the staff, I've noticed. Might it be that Mr. Stevens fears distractions? Can it be that our Mr. Stevens is flesh and blood after all and doesn't trust himself? And he says, you know what I'm doing, Miss Kenton? I'm placing my thoughts elsewhere as you chatter away. And then she says, then why is that guilty smile on your face? And he says, oh, it's not a guilty smile. I'm simply amused by the sheer nonsense that you sometimes talk. And
so flirtatious.
I know. I love this. And she even continues. It is a guilty smile. You can hardly bear to look at her. That's why you didn't want to take her on. She's too pretty. And he says, well, you must be right, Miss Kenton. You always are. Love it.
So good.
So good.
This is what I wanted Age of Innocence to be.
I
so
know,
bad.
right? And let's see. I think that's it. I think that's all the ones that I had written down. And then I had, you have my warmest congratulations. I think that is a gut-wrenching line in this. And the way
that
that
whole scene is gut-wrenching.
and the way he delivers that, my warmest congratulations, like he like does this fake smile after he says it. And I'm just like, motherfucker, just
say how you feel.
Yeah, just say it. All right. Biggest laugh, cry, scare, or thrill of the movie?
I had 2. Biggest laugh was the nature talk.
Yes.
When Lord Darlington tells Stevens, he's like, hey, I need you to go tell my godson about the birds and the bees. And he's just like, excuse me, and is attempting to have that conversation, and it just goes south, and it's very funny.
I love that he's like, yes, my godson, he doesn't have a father anymore, and like nobody to tell him this stuff. This man is in his late 20s, like.
Yeah, he's Hugh Grant.
Yeah, he's Hugh Grant. He knows. He knows how it works. Hugh Grant fucks.
He's gone to a bar.
Yeah.
Like,
He
I'm
knows
sure
what
it'll
he's
be fine.
doing.
And then the butler, who like was in the chat, Virgin Butler, make this man go and have this conversation with
Yeah.
us. Oh, that was hilarious.
Poor man.
The biggest cry is Miss Kenton getting on the bus,
Yeah.
just wailing, and I'm like,
Again, we watched this together, and Alyssa's like, I think I might start crying. And I'm like, yeah, sure, you might start crying. Like, I'm sitting there just like tears welling up in my eyes. She's just like, I'm gonna start crying.
oh
I'm
no,
like,
I felt it. I knew if I said it out loud, I probably wouldn't. So, because I was like inside, I was just like brimming, and I'm like, oh no.
yeah, that one broke me in
That
a way
was-
that I was not prepared for after watching most of this movie.
It was so good.
Yeah, I was, yep, I was definitely on the verge of tears there. All right, the most ridiculous moment.
I didn't have a most ridiculous moment. I just had big laugh and big cry.
Nice. I had the scene where I believe Spencer had brought it up earlier, was talking about where the diplomat or whoever it was basically just asking Stevens a lot of questions that he didn't know anything about, and then shit on him because he didn't know. He's like, this is why we don't give them the vote.
Even so, he's like, oh, he says like, he's like, I can't help you with that, sir. Like, there is a clear power dynamic here. It's like, if your boss asked you feedback on how they're doing, like, you're gonna say you're doing great because you signed my freaking check.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna say what my action, and he's like, that's not my duty, that's not my place, that's not, I am under you all, I'm here to serve, I'm never gonna say, and he never does, even at the end. Like, I still don't exactly know what his thoughts are. So like, he might be a Nazi sympathizer as well, we don't know. I mean, probably not, but like, that's
he was I just remember his reaction whenever Lord Darlington says, hey, can you track down those 2 Jewish girls that we let go? Because I don't believe in that anymore. I think we should hire them back. They were really good. And like, Stevens was so happy walking into that room, and he's like, guess what I just heard? It's
right.
Like, he's not so bad after all, is he? Kind of thing.
Yes. He was just like, his hero was like, yes.
Yeah. Every time that Stevens gets asked a question in this scene, he always replies with, I'm sorry, sir, I'm unable to be of assistance in this matter. He repeats that 3 different times, and it's just like the most ridiculous questions ever.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this massive political instance that you probably know nothing about, and you also aren't allowed to have an opinion in front of me as a general life statement because I write your check?
And you could see kind of like Darlington wincing when he's asking all those questions too.
Because I think Darlington genuinely cares about Stevens.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he admires his opinions and wants, I don't know. He's a friend, almost, but we don't get that. You don't see that a ton in the movie.
It's his closest confidant.
Yes, definitely. Definitely that. So, all right. Best music moment?
I'm back on the bus. When the music swells as the bus is driving off. That was really the only music moment that stuck out to me. Like, I mean, the score was beautiful and it helped and it made sense, but that was the one where it was like, duh! I was like, okay, yes.
I was rewatching some scenes today. That was definitely one of them where the music is it is welling up. It's very, obviously emotional there. The other one that I was thinking of is when she comes in to announce that she has accepted Ben's proposal. It's almost like a horror score, almost. Like, it is very intense, very pulse pounding. And like, I don't know, it was very constant. Like, it was just pounding in there, just adding to like Stevens' kind of breaking point. He breaks the
it's his
wine bottles.
anxiety of being drawn back into the room with like, I have to have my service, I have to do my duties, and this super emotional thing is happening again. Chat says the whole score was great. It elevated the mood out of boring constantly, which I agree with. I think the score was really moving and helped out a lot. Again, like the score for Age of Innocence was, I think, really well done too. I think there was just this different vibe because you had the narration over top of it, and you also had these unlikable characters, but that's beside the point.
I also wanted to point out Blue Moon. The song Blue Moon was in this movie. It's the only song I think. Well, Stevens plays a couple records at one point that he really enjoys, but I think Blue Moon, where they're eating dinner, you have this nice romantic song. I saw you standing alone without a dream in my heart. All this stuff. I really like that, so I put that in there too.
Mhm.
All right. Surprise, surprise. I'm going to give you 3 characters.
Oh, I'm surprised. Okay.
And we're going to do an F, Marry, Kill here. So I'm going to give you the Congressman,
Mm-hmm.
Darlington,
Mm-hmm.
and the Cardinal. Or not the Cardinal. Cardinal. His godson. Hugh
His
Grant.
godson. Ooh, okay.
I feel like I know who you're going to kill. It's really easy.
I'm probably gonna kill Darlington.
Mm-hmm. That's an easy one.
I can't get with Nazis. I think I'm going to marry the congressman.
Okay.
Because we know he's loaded, right? He buys the manor after Darlington passes,
He
and
buys the portly gentleman.
he buys the for 11,000 something or other. I'm like, I don't know
Guineas.
guineas. I don't know what that amounts to, but that's a lot of money. It sounds like. Christopher Reeves is also very handsome, and the Cardinal, like, he's cute, but we know he dies pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, I
He
forgot
dies
about
in
that.
the war, but he's very handsome. I mean, Hugh Grant's a very handsome man. So
Yes. But I think we talked about this. You like again, Christopher Reeve, and then also Hugh Grant. You were saying like, oh, Christopher Reeve aged really well. He almost looked plastic when he was,
when he was
Superman.
younger, when he was Superman, I always thought he kind of looked like plastic. Yeah.
And a little bit of the same with Hugh Grant. Like he was almost too
Hugh
young
Grant,
in
yeah.
this movie. That
Yeah, which is I think that was part of it. Like,
obviously
it made sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think I agree. I think I agree with you on the dating and marrying there. I really wish Christopher Reeve would have obviously not fallen off of that horse. I think we missed out on some really good acting from Christopher Reeve, but it was nice to see him in this movie. I really should watch other Christopher Reeve movies other than Superman. I love him as Superman. So,
Mhm.
All right, who do you think gave the best performance?
I think Stevens.
Yeah,
He killed it. He really, I mean, like you said, he got a BAFTA, and like deserved. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best performances that I've seen this year from an actor.
It was genuinely great.
It's up there. And I love one of my favorite movies of all time is A Silence of the Lambs. I love Silence of the Lambs. He is in that movie as Hannibal Lecter for 15 minutes, maybe less. And that is one of the best like acting I've seen. But like the only other person I can compare him to is like a Daniel Day-Lewis. Again, funny to bring up him as he was in Age of Innocence. But like Daniel Day-Lewis, when he is Daniel Plainview and There Will Be Blood, like there is no, like he is Daniel Plainview. This Anthony Hopkins is Stevens. Like he is not Anthony Hopkins playing a character. He is Stevens. And I just, whenever there is no line anymore of who, like that it's a separate person, I think that's just an incredible performance. Like just insane.
And I will say, like, again, I keep talking about Age of Innocence, but you brought up Daniel Day-Lewis. Both main characters, Stevens and I don't remember what the character's name was in Age of Innocence, but both were kind of marked by their indecision. Right. Neither of them can make a decision. Neither of them can turn left or right. They just kind of go with the flow in the worst way possible. But Stevens is the likable of the two. Like you have empathy and sympathy for him because you see why he's unable to make a decision.
Yeah.
He has morals and a purpose, as misguided as they might be, saying like, I blindly follow my master because he employs me. But you watch that and you go, I want him to win. Whatever winning looks like, I want him to win. As opposed to Age of Innocence, where his indecision was like, you are the worst human on the face of the planet.
And even when they both lose, because they do, essentially, they both lose, like you still feel better for Hopkins and you still want the best for Hopkins's character.
You are rooting for Hopkins.
Yeah. You don't want that for Daniel Day-Lewis's character at all. You're just kind of like, you idiot. You're just so dumb. You had
You're so
Winona Ryder. Get over it. That's the thing. He had an option. Stevens did not have any other options.
No.
His other option was Lord Darlington or Service. Like that was his,
Right.
and Miss Kenton was the mistress of that, even though
Mhm.
there was never anything like that. So it's interesting. There's good movies to actually pair together.
Right.
to
I did
talk
think
about
about that. I
and-
did
and-
think
and
to have them
contrast.
as my pairing, but
Yeah. All right. Recasting. You could do a 93 recasting. You can
I
also
cannot
do
do a
2023 recasting. The only thing I want to bring up for 1993 recasting is that originally Meryl Streep was the first choice for Miss Kenton. And when it's like switched writers and switched directors and everything, she actually got turned down for the role. And Emma Thompson came in here and was chosen over Meryl Streep. So
yes.
it's one of only 3 movies that Meryl Streep has ever been turned down from.
That was
So
one of my fun facts.
that was
Because that's a
inc-
crazy fun fact.
that's crazy. Yeah. You don't turn down Meryl. But the other like 2 movies
But-
that she had were like not even that good. So
Yeah, but Emma did fantastic.
yeah. Yeah, she's great. So okay, 2023. I will be interested to see who you cast.
So I'm not gonna lie, I was a little lazy with
I
my
love it.
2023 recast. Because I was having a hard time. I was like, I actually don't know who to cast in this role. But I decided on Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson.
Okay.
So I thought, because I was trying to think of British actors.
Yeah.
And also I could put Daniel Radcliffe in anything, and I think he'd be awesome. Like
Yeah.
I think he can play. I think he could do this. I think he could do anything, but I think he could do the stoic butler. And Emma Watson hasn't done any, like, she's gotten more into activism. She's not really acting anymore.
Mhm.
But I feel like the role of Miss Kenton has to be this like quite prim and proper, but also willing to like kind of put up a fight. Like I think like there's I'm like looking when I was like looking up actresses or thinking of actresses, I couldn't think of someone modern day age 30 who would be really good at doing the prim and proper. So I thought Emma Watson might do, and also a kind of, I mean, I am a Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger stan. I love the two of them together, but I know that
This would be a good way
Yes.
to, yeah.
that is, I was like, people want the Harry Hermione thing, which I'm like, y'all are sick, but it does allow for that in a way. And so it's not that it was lazy. I was just like, actually, I kind of like justified why I put them
could see
together.
that.
That's all I did. That was just the two of them.
I went a little, those were the only 2 you did?
That's the only two I did.
Okay. I went a little older with my Stevens. And I chose, I had these people written down. Jude Law was one that I had written down because he's 50. I didn't even know he was 50 at this point, just doing everything. And I was like, I would like to see him in a more stoic role and try and do this. But the person that I really want to see in this is Matthew McFadden, who plays Darcy in Pride and Prejudice, you know, the hand flex that everybody keeps talking about. He's Darcy, Mr. Darcy in that. And I think he would be very good in this. And obviously the easy one would be to put Keira Knightley in this, but I did not pick Keira Knightley. I picked Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt would do a great job.
Yeah. And I think her as a lot of people don't like the new Mary Poppins movie, but I thought she was a really good Mary Poppins. And I think, you know, she takes a little bit of that, a little bit of Devil Wears Prada, a little bit of, and puts that into Miss Kenton. And I think that,
I think she'd do a great job.
I picked Colin Firth as Darlington.
Okay.
Another
Yeah.
Darcy. Just to put in here.
And not just all the Darcys.
Yeah, all the Darcys. Nicholas Hoult as Cardinal, because I
Okay.
think Nicholas Hoult is Hugh Grant.
You put him in
2.0.
a lot of things.
I love Nicholas Hoult. I think he's amazing. And then this one's a little bit of fun, but I cast Henry Cavill as the congressman.
Oh yeah.
That's a no-brainer, right? I was looking up like Americans, and I was like, no, Henry Cavill plays an American better than any Americans.
That's true.
He plays he plays Superman. Truth,
That's-
justice, and the American way.
Perfect.
Yeah, so he's perfect. So yeah, that was my recast.
Love
This
it.
is the widest recast I've ever had.
That's
I-
it's kind
I-
when you're casting for Nazi Germany in
Yeah,
like
it's really hard.
1930s. I think it's hard to not.
I just wanted to put Dev Patel and Daniel Kaluuya in this whole movie.
I did have I did have the thought for Miss Kenton's character. I have no idea what her name is. She played Marilyn Monroe in Blonde.
Ana
but
de
she-
Armas.
Yes, because she was in Knives Out and she was a maid in Knives Out, but I thought she would maybe do a good job, but I was like, they are never going to employ her at this manner in 1930s England.
Yeah.
So
I was
decided
thinking
against it.
Zendaya as Stevens because she
Hell
can do
yeah.
anything. That'd be incredible. Incredible. All right, fun facts. You already have some fun facts. Before you say any of yours, I'll say this body count in this movie, I believe, has a body count of 3. 3 people died of the main cast. So
Cardinal, the dad, Stephen Sr.,
and
Hitler.
Darlington.
Oh, what?
Darlington
Oh, Darlington. That's
Yeah.
true.
dies of a broken heart. So body count 3.
Okay. So the one was the Meryl Streep. This was one of 3 roles she was turned down for. Hugh Grant said this was the best movie he ever made,
Interesting.
which I was
That's-
like, it didn't elaborate, didn't say if it was based on cast or what reason, but he said it was one of his best movies he's ever
And this
made.
is one of his first ones. For him to say that is it's pretty cool.
Maybe he really enjoyed the director. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
that was just one of his best. This movie came out 4 years after the novel was published, and that felt fast for me. Like to immediately go from novel to adapted screenplay, like and out, like that seemed fast
Yeah, really
for
fast.
1993. Because
But
now
at
we churn it out like no one's business. But
I think there was this boom. Well, I mean, we still do it these days. Is like you see a Reese Witherspoon book club or whatever it is. But like there was a real boom in the '80s of these novels coming out and them licensing them and putting them out as soon as possible. And
okay.
that's an example of this is the novel Bonfire of the Vanities came out in the '80s and they put it out within like 2 years.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
like one of the worst movies ever made. And there's a really good podcast on that as well, so people should go check that out.
Well, I think back when I was like the first time I was on the show, I said, I think that almost any book that gets adapted into a movie is going to immediately be good, or at least going to immediately have an audience, because the whole reason it gets turned into a movie in the first place is because it has some type of a cult following.
Right.
Twilight is an example. Is it good? No. But was it successful? Yes, because of the books. And I was like, 4 years does not seem like a long time to get a following behind this book for us to go, let's turn it into a movie.
Yeah.
So that makes sense if that was kind of like a fad or a trend.
Yeah, I do. I think it was it was just like this big 80s thing. Everybody, beach reads became a thing. Book clubs like kind of blew up during this time. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that's why.
And I only have one more because this was a question that we both were wondering. The book that Lord Darlington is reading from when he decides to dismiss the 2 German maids is The Foundations of the 19th Century by Houston Stewart Chamberlain. The book promotes racialist, anti-Semitic theories.
Yeah, I thought it was Mein Kampf.
I told you, we're like,
But nice to know that it actually comes from.
good to know that there's 2 books out there.
Yeah,
that
there
have the same thing.
2 books to avoid.
2 books to avoid. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Okay. I think I have a couple. I only have a couple more. I had a couple of the same ones you did. John Cleese of Monty Python was actually offered the role of Stevens, but he withdrew after the original screenplay person got taken out because they took the humor out of it. I can't imagine this as a very really, really funny movie.
Drama.
But yeah. Angelica Houston was also being considered for the part of Miss Kenton, and Jeremy Irons had also been considered for a part in the movie. I don't know who he would have been. Maybe Hugh Grant's character. I don't know. Also, the father of Anthony Hopkins' character, Peter Vaughn, he was only 14 years older than Anthony Hopkins.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there was actually a scene almost at the end of the movie where Anthony Hopkins' character Stevens accepts his failures and cries in front of a total stranger. a retired butler, and did not make the final cut, but it is on the 2001 DVD release. So I don't know if that would have been better or worse.
I don't know, because I love. Well, I mean, we could have done without the bird.
Yeah.
If we just if it ended at her going off on the bus, I wouldn't have wanted to see him cry to a stranger afterwards. I don't think.
I would
Maybe
rather him
not.
break.
I don't know.
I don't. Would you rather him break down in front of her?
No.
Yeah.
No, I want him to hold the facade until he physically can't anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it makes more sense to break down in front of a stranger than it would be to break down. He's never going to break down in front of her.
Yeah. I'm interested. I don't know. I now I kind of want to see the scene. I might go look it up.
Yeah.
After this and see how that goes. All right. We both love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
What is something negative that you give it? You ain't all that.
Oh, I will. This is a personal thing. This movie is quintessential slow burn. I read a lot of romance books, and I am not a fan of slow burn. I love enemies to lovers. I love grumpy sunshine. I like those tropes are in this movie, but the slow burn is just like, I'm just like, kiss, kiss, kiss. Like, I want them to some people love that, like, especially like Jane Austen, queen of slow burn, like with Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice, and that's just not a genre that I enjoy, because I'm like, why won't you kiss? So that is the only, that's not a critique of the movie. That is my own personal preference.
Yeah. I think the only thing I could say, I agree. Well, I agree, but I think this goes into the fact that this was the slowest burn possible.
Yes, I'll say, yeah, like that. When I said after the first hour, I said I was promised a romance. Why is this not a romance? So like, we had all this stuff going on, and then it finally got into it, and I was like, okay. And I would not change this movie. I would not make it anything other than a slow burn. That's just, again, personal preference.
I think the only thing I want to see, and I pointed at it earlier, is I just want more of them together. I want more of those conversations. I want to see them laughing and listening to music together, or talking about the staff together. I wanted a little bit more of that. But I agree with you. Like, I don't think I would change this movie. I think as even during the middle of the movie, you're saying like, I was promised a romance. Like, I feel like by the end of it, I was satisfied.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Again, it's the slow burn. I'm like, are they actually going to? Because again, based on the poster, I was like,
I just remembered something.
The comment that I made that is probably not appropriate for stream.
I'm going to say it anyway.
Great.
This is what edging feels like.
So that's exactly. I was like, this must be what edging feels like.
This is what edging feels like. I love that. Sorry, I outed you. That's okay.
That's a great way to, again, that's the slow burn. It's not my
yeah.
gift.
Yeah. Okay. So we both like this. So Like a Fine Wine with its dish. If you could pair this movie with another movie for a double feature, what would you choose?
So I had two. One you had mentioned was Pride and Prejudice. Because like that is the number one slow burn book movie ever. The hand flex and the will, and also like it's not enemies to lovers, but in a way that there's like kind of a power dynamic, and then there's like politics, and but it's in a different time frame. And Mr. Darcy is very, that's his vibe. So that was the one that came to mind. That wasn't my main pick. My main pairing was actually The Sound of Music.
Okay.
Where it's really I'm like, there is a romance with Nazi Germany happening in the background. Like that is how I paired those together.
Nice. And that kind of goes into my picks too, talking about Nazi Germany, everything. On in the background, the VHS I have playing is Casablanca. Which is kind of similar to this, except there was the difference is like there's a relationship before, like they actually had a relationship before. In the ending of Casablanca, he sends her, Ilsa, off on the plane and like sends her with her husband, but she loves him. And he's like, no, you're leaving Casablanca. And so it's that unrequited love thing, back and forth. Again, Nazi Germany, stuff in the back. But my best, and I am so glad I thought of this, is a movie that is very near and dear to my heart. Love it very much. It's by one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, Wong Kar-wai. It is the movie In the Mood for Love, which is about two individuals who have a husband and wife, and their husband and wives are cheating on them with each other.
Okay.
And they form a bond together because of that. This man and this woman form this bond over there, and it is so very sexy, and not a lot of sex happens, or not a lot of, hardly any. I don't even think anything. I think there might be a kiss at one point, maybe, but it is very much this movie, and very much like you don't get what you want. You're wishing and you don't get what you want. Unrequited Love again. But I think that is the perfect movie to go along with The Remains of the Day. It is a Chinese movie, Hong Kong movie, but it is beautiful. The color, oh my God, I cannot say enough about In the Mood for Love. It is amazing. And then also I had picked the Atonement. If you've ever seen Atonement or read that.
No, but
Kind of-
yeah, I know about
Oh
it.
my God. Yeah. Same kind of thing, except there's an actual like love in there, and it's a little bit different. But In the Mood for Love is hands down my number one pick for a pairing with this movie.
I like it.
All right. Rewatchability rating.
So I did only give it like a 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care to see it again.
Yeah.
It's not like there's nothing that really draws you in. You have to pay a lot of attention. Like we had to rewind a couple times. Like it's not an easy watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not super uplifting. So
Yeah.
not exactly one I want to read. However, it's not like I did. It's a low score because of those reasons, not because I disliked it.
Right. Absolutely. I gave it a 3 for the very same reason. Just like, again, it's not something that I'm like, hey, what do you guys want to watch this weekend? Remains of the Day. Cool.
Remains of the
Let's
Day.
go, dudes. Let's watch this movie again.
It's like the Shania Twain. Let's go, dudes. Remains of the Day.
I'll write that song. Quickly.
Please.
All right. Overall star rating. I'm very interested to see what you gave this.
I gave it a 4.
Awesome. Okay.
I thought it was great. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I was trying to think this is why I don't like rating movies.
Yeah.
Because I have to think about what I've rated other things in the past. But I genuinely liked the ending. I liked the characters. I liked, even though it was like kind of slow moving at times, the payoff was worth it. So I think I would want to give it a 4.
I gave it a 4 initially, after, because I always feel like compelled, give it an initial reaction right after you watch it. And I was like a 4, solid 4. And then I sat on it and thought about it, and I was like, nah, this is a 4.5, baby. I liked it a lot. It's not a perfect 5 for me, but it is a 4.5 for me. So
I would also take anything that I rate with a grain of salt because
I love everybody's rate. I love it. It tells me so much. Like, I just love it. All right, great. Well, thank you, Alyssa. That's kind of where we end things here. But I always like to end giving movie recommendations. Now, I've kind of stepped back a little bit, and this may be a surprise to you. You can give movie recommendations, but I think Steven kind of opened it up a little bit more the last time he was on. If there's anything that you've been watching, anything you've been reading, anything that you've been listening to that you'd love to recommend to people right now, lay it out there.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. You used to ask, have you seen a sunset recently that you've enjoyed? I recently listened to Tyler Chiller's new album, which if you're into like folk and like honestly like 70s country, I recommend it. Very good. I watched the new Haunted Mansion, which I think I enjoyed a lot more than you did.
Yeah.
But I also don't do scary, but I still like spoopy Halloween things. So if you know someone who doesn't like Steven's wife, she would probably like the new Haunted Mansion. I liked it. It was fine. I also watched When Harry Met Sally, which I love and is a classic, and that made me really happy to watch. I'm trying to think of like books. I really liked The Midnight Library that I just read, and it's essentially a modern day It's a Wonderful Life. So if that theme is interesting to you, I do recommend it. It was a very fast read, a quick read. And Great British Bake Off. That's all I'm watching right now.
That's 2 weeks in a row that we've had a great British
I love
British Bake Off.
Bake Off. It was bread week this past week.
Bread
No,
week.
actually, if I'm actually going to recommend, and this is, I know your audience isn't going to give a shit about this. I don't care. The Golden Bachelor is chef's kiss. It is so good. It is just so wholesome and sweet.
Mhm.
And Gary is like 73 years old, and he's just a widower trying to find love, and it is hilarious and so sweet. And it's only an hour as opposed to like the 2 hours that the Bachelor franchise usually is, which is quite I am a hate watcher of the Bachelor franchise. And I am obsessed with the Golden Bachelor.
Well, you've heard it here first, folks. The Golden Bachelor is must-see television.
Must-see television.
Well, thank you
It
for
is
those.
feel-good television.
Yes, less dramatic, fake drama than the other Bachelor.
Yes.
I might add that we both really enjoyed Beth Stelling's newest stand-up special, which is on
That was
Netflix
great.
right now. If you've never heard of her, definitely go check her out. I've been watching a lot of horror movies. I'm doing 31 days of horror movies. So that's been a treat. Some of them have been not great, and some of them have been pretty good. So I would just recommend Halloween 2. I know that sounds ridiculous, but Halloween 2 is actually really, really good. I always watch around Halloween the movie Trick or Treat. I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorites around this time. And I also read a book recently that I was really happy that I actually read a book because it had been a while. I read The 25th Hour by David Benioff, which is made into a movie by Spike Lee and is well loved. But it was amazing, and I really enjoyed it. And that's the second book of his that I've really fell in love with. And then also, I probably recommended it last week, but The Exorcist. It's a perfect movie. Everybody go see The Exorcist. It's amazing. Probably one of my favorite movies of all time. So other than that, that's all I've got to recommend. I feel like yours were way better this time, but that's okay. Next week's movie is going to be Carlito's Way, and unfortunately, it is not streaming anywhere free. It is streaming on VOD, though, so you can rent that if you'd like, or if you have other ways of renting things or finding things on the internet, you do you. But as for now, it is available on VOD, so Amazon, Apple, whatever you use to do that. But I want to thank everybody for your participation today. Thank you, Alyssa, for joining me and talking about this wonderful movie. And I look forward to talking with all of you next week when we do Carlito's Way here on 52/1993. Thank you all so much.